No greater symbol of imperial authority and military might exists than the Adeptus Astartes. These post-human warriors strike with speed, skill, and overwhelming.
What's up, people? Welcome to Millennial Model Mayhem, and thanks for checking out my first video. My name's Liam, and I'm here to have a good hobby time and to create a custom Space Marine chapter based off an energy drink. Because it's 2020 and anything goes, right? Alright, well, without further ado, let's get started on our Assault Intercessor boy. There's our boy. Now that you've seen a hurricane of video edits of me assembling and cleaning the mold lines, watch me brush some watered down PVA glue to the base. Make sure you use one of your worst brushes for this part. Once the glue is evenly spread across the base, I run my finger along the rim to catch any naughty glue. Then I rustle it around in a mixture of different hobby sands. When the initial glue is dry after a few hours, I'll brush on another layer thinned with more water to further secure the sand. Use a little bit of water with your brush to remove any sand that accidentally got glued to his feet. And don't forget to cut out the transfer for the shoulder pad. If you're following along at home, don't worry about using all the same materials that I am, just use whatever's available to you. Because it's your hobby too. The first step of painting will be to paint on some tasty green colors for the armor. I'll be using an airbrush to get some fancy layers going, but you can just as easily prime with a rattle can and brush on the main color. Your Marine, your way. The first layer to airbrush on is Vallejo Surface Primer Black. I'm using a janky mixture of thinners and mediums that I don't have time to go into with this video. If you'd like to know more, I recommend watching Miniac's video on the topic. Next, we are going to lay down a foundation for the main color with a 1-to-1 thinned mixture of P3 Crix Bane base and Vallejo Game Color Sick Green. Make sure to get good coverage on the undersides of the armor where the shadows would be. After the dark green layer is dry, we're going to put on the main color, which is the same sick green from last step. We're also focusing on a slightly higher angle to leave some of that shadow tone visible. The final airbrushing step is to lightly apply a thinned mixture of 1-to-1 Vallejo Game Color Livery Green and Sick Green, focusing on a higher angle that hits where the highlights would be. Now that we've got a nice vibrant green on our boy, it's time to grab the brushes and get to work. Base coat the shoulder pads, under armor, and weapons black. Throughout the whole painting process, I will try and use the largest brush I'm comfortable with, and only switch to smaller ones when I need the extra control. It's important in this stage to keep a spare brush nearby for cleaning up any potential mistakes we make onto the armor. Next, we're going to move to the base and brush on some Vallejo Game Color Terracotta. I want the base to evoke a Mars-like alien planet for that sweet contrast it should have with the green armor. Once the base coat is dry, mix some Vallejo Game Color Earth with the terracotta and start dry brushing. My tool of choice here is a dollar store makeup brush. It's a good idea to do dry brushing steps like these as early in the process as possible so you don't accidentally ruin any detail work on those precious feats. The final dry brushing layer adds some Vallejo Model Color Sand Yellow to the mix, and I'm using a lighter touch in order to preserve the previous colors when I'm dry brushing. Alright, that base is looking nice and dusty, so now it's time to base coat all the leather details with Model Color Burnt Umber. While we're at it, we can also give the Purity Seal a base coat of the same brown and use the terracotta that's still on the palette for the wax seal. But I don't think you really need a Purity Seal when you're pumped full of monster energy. Am I right, boys? That's right, I'm putting metallics on my wet palette. When it comes to painting the silver details on Space Marines, I don't know what the standard is, so I only pick out the details that I think will look nice. And I suggest you do the same. Your Marine, your way. For the fancy skull cross on his forearm, I used Model Color Bronze. Continuing to fill out all the details, make sure to accidentally squirt out way too much game color dead white and shake your fist in anger, then base coat the eyes. They're going to be red eventually. Add some game color khaki to the palette for the Purity Seal, and once that layer is dry, start using all the dead white on your palette to mix together a highlight. And because we don't like to waste paint, we can also use the dead white with the terracotta to highlight the wax seal. Aren't wet palettes great? #value. And just add some thin lines of black to simulate text on the Purity Seal. Next, the base and Purity Seal get Army Painter soft toned for some tasty brown shading. Make sure to go light on the Purity Seal to avoid any pooling or spillage onto the green. Use the burnt umber and khaki from before to mix lighter brown tones around the edges of the large leather bits. After the first pass, simply add a little white to the mix and do a smaller highlight that focuses on the corners rather than the whole edge. Continuing with our edge highlighting, add some Model Color Medium Gray and mix with black for an edge highlight on the weapons. We're not going to bother with highlighting the shoulder pads, since they're going to have a lot going on and we won't want to distract. Speaking of shoulder pads, go back and grab the sick and livery green from before because it's time to flex those non-existent freehand skills. Since this boy is merely a grunt from a larger unit, all we're doing here is 2 layers of green. I'm sure by the time I paint a dozen more of these, I'll be able to nail that sick logo. Next, we're spraying the whole boy with a shiny gloss coat. This is for 2 reasons. First being that it will help our Nuln oil, aka cheat sauce, to flow into the recesses. Remember to create an anti-spill fort for your liquid talent. Trust me. Even with the gloss coat, keep an eye out for pools on the armor plates that might dry into patches you'll need to clean up later. But if that does end up happening, you can easily fix it with thin layers of the main green color you used, mixed with a bit of Nuln oil. Oh, and since I forgot to drill the gun barrel, just paint a black circle in there and hope no one yells at you. Almost done now. Just add a drop of red ink to each eye, because red eyes are cool. Then go back to those trusty greens for the final edge highlight. Like I said before, this is just one grunt from a unit, so I'm definitely not going to highlight every single detail on the armor. I simply paint all the details that I think are most prominent and would catch the light from above. Then I mix in more livery green for the second highlight, which focuses more on the corners, just as we highlighted the leather and weapons previously. It's times like these when you can really appreciate the sculpting of these models. You can put in the minimal effort with just a wash and a basic highlight, Or you can go full tilt and hit every single one of those sharp lines for an extra crispy boy. For the shoulder opposite the logo, we're applying the waterslide decal as shown in the box art. This is the second way our previous gloss coat will help us out by giving a nice smooth surface for the decal to slide onto without tearing. Once I got the position down, I used some decal softener to prevent any wrinkles or folds. And the last official painting step for me is to slap some matte medium onto the base and purity seal, just in case our final matte seal doesn't cover completely. Now, all that's left to do is to spray the whole model with some matte varnish to protect all the hard work, and then we go get some glory shots.
Brother Kyle, I request assistance in destroying these heretics.
Test paint scheme, Marine, is that you?
If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. When I came up with the idea for the Monster Energy Marine, I didn't think that I'd be using it to debut a YouTube channel, but boy, I'm sure glad I did. I have so many ideas for more videos. Some are miniature related like this one was, and some of the ideas I have are for model related ones as well. So make sure to follow me on social media and
The Emperor demands that you subscribe, lock on notifications, and annihilate that like button.